His father was very strict with the kids, about when they could go out, when they had to be in, what they could wear. The girls weren't allowed to wear makeup, and he had very strong feelings against secular pop music.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Let's make love tonight. Yes, I'm just a stubborn kind of fella. Got my mind made up.
Did you know Marvin Gaye, one of the smoothest voices in music history, died carrying a dark secret that left the world stunned? Behind the fame, the awards, and the love from millions of fans, there was pain he never fully escaped. Marvin's life was a wild roller coaster of glory and heartbreak. He gave the world songs that weren't just catchy. They made people feel something real. They cut deep into the soul.
When I was a child, I used to hear music constantly. I long for that to return to me.
But behind those timeless hits was a man battling demons that no stage lights could ever hide. Born on April 2nd, 1939 in Washington, D.C., Marvin grew up in a place where hope was hard to find. His family lived in the Fairfax Apartments, a rough housing project falling apart at the seams. No proper electricity, no running water, just cramped walls and endless struggle. Marvin and the kids around him nicknamed it Simple City because life there was anything but glamorous.
But we had a religious father, so we couldn't we couldn't start fights. And there was no cussing.
His parents were a mismatched pair that shaped his world in painful ways. Marvin Gaye Sr., a strict church minister, ruled the house with an iron fist, while his mother, Alberta Gaye, worked as a housekeeper and gave all the love she could. Marvin was the second of 4 kids, growing up with 2 sisters, Jan and Zeola, and his brother Frankie. But life at home, it was brutal.
His father was very strict with the kids, about when they could go out, when they had to be in, what they could wear. The girls weren't allowed to wear makeup, and he had very strong feelings against secular pop music.
Marvin later admitted living under his father's roof was like living with a cruel king. His dad's punishments were harsh, cold, and unforgiving. The only light in that darkness was his mother, who pushed him to sing and kept reminding him that he was meant for more. She was his safe place when the walls at home felt like they were closing in.
Marvin's family were quite different because his father belonged to this church called the House of God, which was a black holiness church, but with a rather unusual twist because it had a very strong emphasis on the Old Testament, and it was a mixture of sort of Christianity and Judaism in some ways.
By the age of 4, Marvin was already singing in church while his father played piano. The church was strict, but music was Marvin's joy, his escape. At 11, when he sang Be My Love at a school play, people couldn't believe the voice coming out of such a young kid. That moment lit a fire in him. He knew music wasn't just a dream, it was his destiny.
And Marvin approached me and said, Mr. Fuqua, I love your group, and we can really sing. Could you?
Through the pain at home, Marvin found freedom in music at school. He joined the Glee Club, wowed teachers, and became the star of the show. Singing turned into his shield, the one thing that made him feel alive when everything else was falling apart.
Marvin Sr. was getting invited to these preaching engagements because he would take along Marvin Jr., and Marvin Jr. would sing in these churches and these conventions, and people liked Marvin Jr., and Marvin Jr. was getting attention. So I think there you get the seeds of jealousy beginning.
When Marvin finally broke into Motown in the 60s, he wasn't just chasing fame, he was running from his past. The hits came fast, the spotlight was bright, and the world saw him as untouchable. But behind that silky voice and smooth style, the scars of his father's control and abuse were still there, haunting him every step of the way. Marvin Gaye wasn't just a singer, he was a survivor, carrying a story much darker than the music ever revealed. Marvin Gaye didn't just walk into the spotlight, he kicked the door wide open. Before the world knew him as the silky smooth voice of Motown, he was just a drummer in the background. But the moment he dropped his first big hit, Stubborn Kind of Fellow, everything changed.
Yes, I'm just a stubborn kind of fella. Got my mind made up.
Marvin skyrocketed to the top, quickly becoming one of Motown's most prized voices. By 1973, he wasn't just singing duets with icons like Diana Ross. He was producing his own records, experimenting with sounds, and even playing every instrument himself. People around him knew Marvin wasn't just an artist. He was rewriting the game. But away from the stage, Marvin's private life was spinning with secrets and drama. His first marriage was to Anna Gordy, sister of Motown's founder, Berry Gordy. Anna was much older than Marvin, and the couple had trouble having children. So they adopted a baby boy, Marvin III. But here's where the story takes a jaw-dropping turn. The truth behind that adoption was explosive. The boy's biological mother wasn't Anna. It was Anna's own niece, Denise Gordy. And Denise was just 16 years old when she gave birth. Later, author Michael Eric Dyson revealed in his book, Mercy, Mercy Me, The Art, Loves, and Demons of Marvin Gaye, that Marvin himself was the biological father of that child. This shocking revelation painted Marvin in a scandalous light. Denise was underage, and Marvin's involvement with her was deeply controversial. He never publicly confirmed it, likely because doing so could have landed him in serious legal trouble, but even without his admission, whispers and rumors spread fast, and they've never stopped haunting his legacy. Despite the chaos, Marvin and Anna stayed together for years. Their marriage was fiery, full of love, but also filled with fights and power struggles. Marvin once confessed in Rolling Stone through biographer David Ritz, "There was tremendous love between us and tremendous need for one another, but I couldn't be controlled, not by a wife, not by a manager, not by a record company. I was born a ram and a rebel." That one line said it all. Marvin was determined to live by his own rules, no matter the cost. By 1975, Anna had enough. She filed for divorce after 12 stormy years of marriage. The fallout was brutal. Marvin was drowning in financial problems, owing his ex-wife massive alimony, reports said nearly $600,000, plus back taxes. Just 1 year later, the Prince of Motown was forced to file for bankruptcy. The man who once ruled the charts was now fighting to keep his empire from crumbling. Marvin's financial spiral only got worse after his divorce from Anna. To escape the mountain of debt, he struck a shocking settlement deal. The first $307,000 he owed her would come straight out of the royalties from his next album, while the remaining $293,000 would be paid off with future royalties. In other words, Marvin was literally singing just to pay back his ex-wife. Then came a new chapter, his marriage to Janice Hunter, a woman much younger than him. They had 2 children together, but history repeated itself. By 1979, that marriage collapsed too, leaving Marvin buried under alimony payments to 2 ex-wives. The messy divorces drained him emotionally and financially, but at the same time, they lit the fire for the music that would eventually pay those bills. His personal chaos became the fuel behind his art, but Marvin's heartache didn't start with Anna or Janice. It had already been broken years earlier. He was still grieving the loss of Tammy Terrell, his beloved duet partner, with whom he recorded unforgettable classics like Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Tammy tragically died of brain cancer in March 1970 at just 24 years old, and Marvin never truly recovered from it. That pain lingered deep in his soul. Throughout his Motown years, Marvin had several duet partners. In 1964, he was first paired with Mary Wells, the Queen of Motown. Their collaboration gave him room to shine, but after their record together, Mary left the label. Then came Kim Weston. They struck gold with It Takes Two, which became a massive hit. But just like Mary, Kim also left Motown soon after. Next was Oma Hurd, a seasoned artist often miscredited as Oma Page. She recorded multiple tracks with Marvin, but almost all of them were left unreleased. Her career barely registered in the Motown machine. And then came Tammy Terrell. Their partnership starting in 1966 was pure magic, giving the world timeless duets that still play today. But when Tammy died in 1970, Marvin was devastated. Friends like football star Mel Farr recalled how Marvin locked himself away, unable to cope with the grief. The world was watching Marvin Gaye rise as a legend, but behind closed doors, he was crumbling. Drugs became his escape. By the late 1960s, he was experimenting with cocaine, but by the 1970s, it turned into full-blown addiction. Those close to him described a man torn between extremes, reading scripture in one moment and then disappearing into a cocaine binge the next. On top of it all, the violent news of the era shook him deeply. The 1970 Kent State tragedy, where 4 students were killed by the National Guard, left him shattered. He confessed in his book, Divided Soul with David Ritz, "I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop crying." And in one rare interview in the summer of 1971, Marvin admitted he was terribly disillusioned with life in general. Marvin Gaye was trapped in a vicious cycle, drowning in heartbreak, haunted by death, poisoned by drugs, and yet somehow still pouring all that pain into music that would change the world forever. Marvin Gaye's life turned into a strange routine that revealed just how deep his battles ran. His drug use spiraled out of control. It wasn't just cocaine anymore. He even experimented with PCP, a drug infamous for twisting the mind and causing wild hallucinations. This dangerous lifestyle pushed Marvin into a dark place, and by 1983, he had attempted to take his own life not once, but twice. But the demons weren't only in his head, his finances were collapsing too. Marvin owed the IRS over $1 million in back taxes, another $600,000 to the state of California, and more than $300,000 in alimony. The mountain of debt was crushing him, and with nowhere else to turn, he fled the United States. First stop, London. Marvin hoped a new setting would heal him, but instead he sank deeper into a lifestyle of wild parties, women, and drugs. When that didn't work, he tried again, moving to Belgium. And for a moment, it looked like Belgium saved him. He found a lifeline in a businessman named Freddie Coussard, who believed in Marvin and helped steer him back toward the music. Out of this unlikely friendship came Marvin's comeback masterpiece, Sexual Healing, in 1983. The song blew up worldwide, reviving his career and putting him right back in the spotlight. On stage, Marvin was reborn, dazzling audiences like the legend he was. But behind the curtain, his problems never went away. His debts were still towering over him, and his personal life stayed messy. On top of that, his relationship with Motown, the very label that made him a star, completely collapsed. The breaking point came with his album In Our Lifetime. Motown released it without Marvin's approval, and not only did they change the production, they even stripped out the question mark from the title. To Marvin, that wasn't just punctuation. It was the soul of the record. The full message was supposed to be a haunting question. Is the world coming to an end in our lifetime? When Motown dropped the question mark, Marvin felt they erased his vision, and to make things worse, they added instruments to his track Far Cry, a song Marvin considered unfinished. He saw this as betrayal, pure and simple.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Let's make love tonight.
By 1983, Marvin's anger boiled over. He admitted in interviews that going on tour might end him, but he had no choice. The tax bills were massive, and he needed the money. That April, he launched the Sexual Healing Tour in San Diego, hitting the stage in a flashy red military-style suit with gold buttons, the same outfit now locked in the Motown Museum. On the outside, he looked like a superstar. On the inside, he was breaking apart. As the tour dragged on, Marvin's health and mind began to collapse. The pressure of performing, the weight of his debts, and the paranoia from his drug use all came crashing down. Fans saw the legend glowing under the spotlight, but only Marvin knew he was spiraling into one of the darkest chapters of his life. By the end of his tour, Marvin was a shell of himself. He was convinced people wanted him dead. His paranoia was so real that he hired bodyguards everywhere he went, not for the image, but because he genuinely feared for his life. He even made his sister hand him water on stage because he thought someone might poison him. Imagine living like that. Every sip, every performance, every spotlight moment felt like it could be his last. The pressure broke him down. During the tour, Marvin collapsed from exhaustion in Florida and had to be rushed to the hospital. His body couldn't take it anymore, and neither could his mind. He pulled the plug on the tour, desperate for rest, and returned home. But going back only reignited the demons of his past. Instead of peace, Marvin walked straight back into the storm that had haunted him since childhood.
He was a very peculiar habits such as dressing up in women's clothes and wearing his wife's, nylons and underwear and things like that.
At the center of that storm was his father, Marvin Gaye Sr. A strict Pentecostal preacher, Marvin Sr. ruled their household with an iron fist and endless punishments, but his own life was twisted with secrets and struggles. Marvin's sister Zeola revealed their father secretly wore women's clothing and battled alcoholism. When sober, he could show kindness, but once the bottle hit his lips, he became cruel, cold, and bitter. Some family members tried to defend him, saying he wasn't all bad, but for Marvin, the scars of that upbringing never healed. Moving back home only made things worse. When Marvin Sr. returned from a trip to Washington, D.C., the father-son feud reignited with full force. Their fights got so bad that Marvin's sisters eventually packed up and left the house altogether. And the threats, they were chilling. In a 1985 interview, Marvin's sister Jean recalled their father saying more than once that if Marvin ever laid a hand on him, he would kill him. This wasn't just talk, it was a promise hanging over the family like a shadow. By late 1983, Marvin seemed to be giving in to that dark fate. His sister claimed Marvin wanted to die, and the signs were everywhere. That Christmas, he gave his father a .38 special pistol as a gift to protect the family home from intruders. But in reality, it felt more like Marvin was handing his father the very weapon that could end his life. Then came April 1st, 1984, the day everything exploded. A heated argument erupted between Marvin Sr. and his wife Alberta. Marvin Jr. stepped in to defend his mother, but instead of calming things down, he snapped. He shoved his father to the ground and began beating him in a rage. Alberta screamed for her son to stop, but Marvin didn't listen. Decades of pain, anger, and resentment poured out in that violent moment, and it set the stage for one of the most shocking endings in music history. Alberta later revealed to biographer David Ritz that Marvin had given his father some hard kicks during their fight. Just minutes later, Marvin Sr. made good on the chilling threat he had repeated over the years. He came back with the very same .38 pistol Marvin had gifted him only months earlier. And then, 2 shots rang out. Marvin Gaye was hit twice in the chest. From the guest house nearby, Marvin's brother Frankie and his wife Irene heard the gunfire and rushed over. Frankie tried to comfort his brother in his final moments and later claimed Marvin's last words were heartbreaking. "I got what I wanted. I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it. It's good. I ran my race. There's no more left in me." Those words fueled a haunting belief among Frankie and other family members that Marvin had provoked his father into killing him, turning his death into a kind of tragic suicide. As Jean Gaye once put it, Marvin freed himself from his pain, freed his mother from years of suffering, and left his father cursed to live with the guilt for the rest of his days. In their eyes, Marvin knew exactly what he was doing. At the time of his death, Marvin didn't leave behind wealth or property. His debts were heavy, his fortune gone, but what he did leave was priceless. His intellectual property, the songs, the royalties, his image, and his story. Under California law, his 3 children inherited his estate equally, but before they could see a dime, every tax bill and debt had to be settled. Through clever management and aggressive marketing of Marvin's music, the estate not only cleared those debts, but eventually built millions in assets. Decades later, his children still benefit from the genius their father poured into the world. One of the biggest battles over Marvin's legacy came in 2013, when Robin Thicke, Pharrell Williams, and T.I. released Blurred Lines. The track exploded worldwide, but Marvin's family claimed it copied his 1977 classic, Got to Give It Up. Thicke and Pharrell tried to fight back, asking a judge to rule they hadn't stolen a thing. But Marvin's heirs countersued, insisting the similarities were undeniable. The trial was messy, and the rules made it even harder. The jury couldn't hear Marvin's actual recording. Only sheet music and expert analysis were allowed. Still, in 2015, the verdict came down hard. The jury sided with Marvin's family, awarding them $7.4 million in damages, later upheld on appeal. Even though the judgment didn't cover all the touring profits Blurred Lines generated, it was a powerful reminder. Marvin Gaye's voice, style, and artistry still carried weight, even from beyond the grave. Marvin Gaye's story is the ultimate tragedy. A man who gave the world timeless music while drowning in personal pain, family trauma, and inner battles he couldn't escape. His death shook the world, but his legacy,
The paper. You're a regular hero. Allowed to put you in a movie.
it only grew stronger. To this day, every note he ever sang still echoes, proof that even in heartbreak, Marvin Gaye's soul lives on forever. Despite all the chaos Marvin went through, his children ended up blessed in one way. His estate managers worked tirelessly to protect his legacy. Even though Marvin hadn't planned his finances carefully, his kids were still able to inherit the power of his name, his royalties, and his story. To this day, his family continues to honor him, making sure Marvin's music stays alive for new generations. But Marvin was never just a singer. He wanted to be bigger than music. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, while his voice was climbing Motown's charts, Marvin chased Hollywood dreams. He appeared in 2 Vietnam War-themed movies, The Ballad of Andy Crocker and Chrome and Hot Leather. In Andy Crocker, he played a war veteran trying to adjust to civilian life after the battlefield, a role that exposed the real struggles of soldiers returning home. Then in Chrome and Hot Leather, Marvin stepped into a revenge-driven story about Green Berets clashing with a biker gang. Neither film was a smash hit, but to Marvin, they were important. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra, men who conquered both music and film, and Marvin had the looks, the charisma, and the talent to make it happen. Some believe that if he stuck with acting, he could have become a movie star in his own right. Even his name carried layers of conflict and drama. Originally born Marvin Gaye Jr., the E at the end of Gaye didn't come from Motown execs, as some stories claim. Marvin added it himself. Why? Because of the painful connection to his father. He once admitted in Divided Soul that sharing the same name as Marvin Sr. tormented him. His father's secret struggles with identity and behavior made the name Gaye an easy target for teasing. People would mock him, saying, "Is Marvin Gaye?" And Marvin hated it. Music producer Beans Bowles revealed that the guys in the industry would mess with him constantly, calling him Esky just to push his buttons. It stung every time. Marvin carried that pain for life, a permanent reminder of his father's shadow. Adding the E was his way of creating distance, of separating himself from the man who had haunted him since childhood. But no matter what demons followed him, Marvin's brilliance was undeniable. Scholar Michael Eric Dyson summed it up in Mercy. Mercy Me, the art, loves, and demons of Marvin Gaye, saying Marvin transformed music like nobody before him. He blended gospel, pop, rhythm, and blues, and pure soul into something entirely new, something timeless. And even after his tragic end, Marvin's voice remains eternal. His music wasn't just entertainment, it was a revolution that forever changed the sound of America. The New York Times once wrote that Marvin Gaye wasn't just a singer, he was a force who reshaped pop music forever. He fused the raw emotion of soul with the fire of gospel and the smoothness of jazz, creating a sound that was unmatched. During the 1960s and 1970s, his work with Motown didn't just define the label, it redefined the sound of an entire generation. That's why the world crowned him the Prince of Soul and the Prince of Motown. Marvin's influence ran deeper than chart-topping hits. He was one of the first artists bold enough to break away from Motown's cookie-cutter formula, demanding creative freedom to tell his own truth. That fearless move not only gave us masterpieces like What's Going On, but also paved the way for legends like Stevie Wonder to take control of their artistry too. Marvin opened the door, and others walked through it. His sound changed the future of R&B, birthing whole new styles like Quiet Storm and Neo Soul. Icons such as Barry White, D'Angelo, and even Stevie Wonder himself admitted they drew inspiration from Marvin's music. His style even crept into Hollywood. In Dreamgirls, Eddie Murphy's character mirrored Marvin's 1970s look and stage presence. That's how big his imprint was. Decades after his death, Marvin's name still echoes across songs, stages, and culture. His voice remains timeless, his lyrics still powerful, and his story still unforgettable. Marvin Gaye didn't just change music, he became music. His legacy is a reminder that even the most broken souls can leave behind beauty that never fades. And that's Marvin Gaye's incredible story. What do you think about his life, his struggles, and his untouchable legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories about the legends you thought you knew. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.